Birgit Meyer, I hope I pronounced that correctly, yeah, is Professor of Religious Studies at Utrecht University. She works on African Christianity, Pentecostal churches, religion, media, and the public sphere, and audiovisual culture, aesthetics, and the senses. Her publications include Translating the Devil, Religion and Modernity Among the Ewe in Ghana, Globalization and Identity, Dialectics of Flow and Closure, and Magic and Modernity, Interfaces of Revelation and Concealment.
Thank you very much for inviting me to come here and speak. I appreciate this very much, and actually I see this event also as a homage to Paul Faber, who has been relentlessly championing popular culture as worth being collected, researched, and exhibited. And as he explained already earlier this evening, this fits in with the broader tradition of this museum of stressing the importance of everyday life. Of course, we all remember vividly, some of us at least, the naturalistic representations through which this museum became famous and trendsetting all over Europe. This has quite some time ago given way to a more aestheticized display, but the everyday is still very much present in the emphasis placed on popular culture and on, in fact, the collecting of material forms that can be seen as popular culture. For me, this is very important also because this emphasis links up with my own work. Paul alluded to this already. For about 15 years, I have been working on popular video movies in Ghana, and I had also the privilege to co-organize a video film festival here in the Tropenmuseum, which was also an occasion for filmmakers from Ghana to bring a collection of posters already, which then also found their way into the museum. And I see this, indeed, you see two quite typical posters there. And I also see this as really a very nice example that illustrates how this is a place where research, collection, exhibition all come together. I think there are very, very good reasons to focus this symposium on popular culture and popular art. Of course, popular is not easily defined, and it is by no means meant to stand in contrast to elite culture. Popular in the use, as we use it here today, circumscribes expressions of local cultural creativity that fall in between the categories of traditional and modern. These categories have long guided Africanist research and still play a very important role in politics of cultural representation. However, far from fitting into a third category that would contain what the other two leave out, I understand popular as indicating a challenge to such neat categories for describing and ordering cultural practices. The adjective popular indicates ordinary people's open-minded attitude towards new or foreign stuff that is being incorporated and reworked according to their understandings, with wit, irony, humor, exaggeration, provocation. And it also entails a close relation between production and consumption in a shared world of lived experience. It is important to point out that then the qualification popular culture is not simply about particular things, but it also is about the attitude we have towards them. What is important here, and Johannes has also brought that up in his presentation and in much of his work, is the emphasis on a relational, critical, and self-reflexive approach with regard to items we study as popular culture. I would like to raise 3 points with regard to Fabian's keynote, which we just heard. Firstly, I would like to say something about the question, for the whole talk is organized a quite intriguing question, in the shadow of which other questions also loom. And the point is already one can place the emphasis differently. So Fabian also read it like this: what is African popular art doing in a museum? So posed in this way, of course, the point is the contrast between two spaces, and often this links up to discussions in which, in fact, the loss of the original context in the context of the museum is being discussed in terms of life and death, or in any case, a shift from one context or setting into the other. And in fact, we are all aware of very, very long-standing debates about the museum, about its act of domesticating and sanitizing the objects, robbing them of their liveliness, all that happens in the process of collection and storage. This is certainly a question that is behind the question as Johannes Fabian posed it. Another question is, of course, what is African popular art doing in an ethnological museum rather than in an art gallery or in an art museum? You may recall that Johannes Fabian did not mention ethnological in this question, but obviously he has been referring, when talking about the museum, to a museum like this one, which is an ethnological museum. Now, of course, once the emphasis is being placed on the aesthetic value of an art object, big questions arise about the proper place of art. And then, of course, indeed, the question is, how should the ethnological museum relate to the question of global art and art objects? And actually, this is a very big theme for debate, which will incidentally also be addressed next week in a workshop in this museum at the occasion of the defense of Rhoda Woods, who's also present here. She just finished her dissertation on art in Ghana. Now, all these debates are important and interesting, but I think that Johannes Fabian poses his question in a more fundamental way. And I would say that the gist of the question as he poses is what is African popular art doing in a museum? And doing has to be taken here quite literally, since objects, as he insists, are not just representations or carriers of meaning. The point is not how to interpret objects and to find out about their meaning and signification by, as it were, looking through and behind them, taking them as symbols to access a certain kind of message. Rather, as Fabian explained, objects do something. We could also say they are agents that have to be taken seriously in a concrete sense as presences. Objects have a presence and they act. Placed before us, they of course embody human work, human ideas and dreams, all that has been put into them, but they render it present. Now, taking this as a starting point, we cannot stick to the mere question what we as researchers or curators are doing with them, collecting, storing, displaying, but we also must ask what they do to us. And I think what opens up here is indeed the potential and the possibility of objects to also bring in new ideas, to raise an entirely new and broader horizon of possibilities. And I think it is very important to have in mind this approach towards pieces of popular art and objects that focuses on an understanding as objects as also acting. My second point is the question of the popular imagination and images or pictures. It may not surprise you, given what I just outlined, my emphasis placed on the agentive character of objects, that I very much favor what is now being called a material approach of the imagination. Of course, the way we use the imagination in daily use, it's often imagination is a fiction. It is a chimerical fiction opposed to the real. It is located in the mind. And recently, it is often also understood interchangeably with culture, also understood as a set of concepts. But this is not how I would use imagination. I take the imagination to be a human faculty that constructs the world, and in this sense is part of world making. The imagination is not just a matter of inner images, but also of external ones. It is the imagination that crystallizes in concrete and tangible forms, in things, in pictures, as well as texts. And so I take pictures like the paintings by Chibumba, but also this kind of video posters, as well as the moving pictures, which these posters are made to advertise as products of the imagination that achieve a certain presence in social life and that feed back into people's imagination. These pictures are not just the stuff with which we think and imagine, but they need to be taken seriously as presences that shape, that make, and that do things in the world. So what I propose to do is to take pictures seriously as presences as well as representations, and to focus on the circular relation between inner images and the way they are being externalized. And this is placing emphasis on a living dynamic rather than looking at static objects that can be analyzed by themselves. Johannes Fabian has stressed that popular art is an art of survival. So popular art encapsulates energies of world making, and it is this that we need to get at, both as people working in a museum as well as a researcher. In Johannes Fabian's example of the Chibumba pictures, he introduced the importance of pictures as a reminder, stating that in facing these images, we are eye in eye with intellectual work. But I would say, and he said these pictures are disturbing, they must disturb us. But I would say there are other disturbing and sensational aspects once one works with popular art as well. And I encounter this very strongly in my own work on video movies in Ghana and the kind of posters that also bring out certain attractive scenes and stuff in these movies. The movies emerge in the shadow of Hollywood and Bollywood. They are experimental, they are also scandalizing. So one has to ask, what is the kind of world that is being made through these still and moving pictures? It is a mode of world making that very much discards traditional culture, many of the things we find worth keeping in the museum. It is strongly pushing, at least a great deal of these movies, conversion to Christianity. It feeds into a mood of ongoing change, and it also is quite complicit, in fact, with the possibilities of capitalism. So this, I think, when talking about this kind of pieces of popular art, we also need to raise the question of our stance towards it and where to locate a critique of popular art. For popular art is not always nice and something we like, but it can be very edgy and disturbing in many, many ways. I think I got a sign already, so my third point, I just say what it would have been about. It would have been about the relation between anthropology and the anthropological museum. I think that even over the past 20 years, when looking back, these two worlds have been drifting apart more and more. I still had the privilege to study museology with Harry Leiten, who is present here. This kind of collaborative work does no longer exist, and I very much agree with Johannes Fabian's suggestion to take the museum seriously as a research location, and I would see many, many possibilities for future collaboration, trying as much as possible to stay out of the world of liberalism that indeed, we need to do that so as to ask questions together, not only about the value of popular art, but in addressing these things, asking what matters, what is valuable. And I think there's a lot of exchanges we have. So thank you for your attention.